Hey there. So, whether you're thinking about becoming a virtual assistant in 2025 or you're already on the path and you want to make sure you've got all the skills to make you successful in the coming year, in today's video, I'm going to break down 7 of the most important skills for virtual assistants. These are the skills I would recommend focusing on and mastering in 2025 to stand out in what's becoming a more competitive industry. Now, just because it's becoming more competitive, I don't want to scare you away from becoming a VA or continuing to grow your virtual assistant business. Because the fact is that the virtual assistant industry is growing. A Business Research Insights company, which is a market research company, reports that in 2023, the virtual assistant industry was valued at $3.07 billion and is expected to reach $19.27 billion by 2032, growing at a compound annual growth rate of about 22%. So there's still lots of space for new virtual assistants to break into the industry, and for those people who are already running virtual assistant businesses to continue to do so. My business was essentially a launch pad for me to build what is now a thriving consulting business. So 2 of the skills I'm going to share are pretty basic skills for a virtual assistant to have. They're like the must-haves. But the other 5 that I'm going to share are the skills that are going to set you apart from other virtual assistants. And as the industry grows and more people want to work remotely, more people want to freelance, which virtual assisting is the perfect role to do that, it is going to be really important for you to have skills that help you stand out from other people that are vying for the same roles that you are. And not only that, these are skills that are actually going to provide an immense amount of value to your clients, which means you're going to be able to retain your clients better, build longer, positive relationships with your clients, which in turn, almost inevitably, especially in the virtual assistant industry, turns into referrals into your business. And the last skill I'm going to share, number 7, I'm also curious if you would characterize it as a skill or not. I'm not really sure if it can be considered a skill, but I actually think it is the most important thing in order for you to have a sustainable virtual assistant business. So when we get to that part of the video, I'd love for you to comment and share what you think. But in the meantime, let's dive into skill number 1, which is organization. So again, this is one of those very basic skills that as a virtual assistant is so important to have, because as a virtual assistant, you're not just worrying about organizing yourself and your tasks and your time. You're very often organizing things on behalf of your client and helping them get organized themselves. And sometimes, quite frankly, you're organizing their entire business. This could be helping them to organize by offering services such as calendar management or organizing their emails, their company files, or their processes. And organization is a really basic and crucial skill for a VA because a lot of the people who are hiring VAs, especially if they're a solopreneur or a startup, and they're kind of like the creative and the visionary behind their business, a lot of them actually lack organization themselves. And so they're looking to hire team members that complement them and fill in the gaps on the things that they're not really great at. And this is where you bring that immense amount of value to them and their business. And it's going to save them time, money, and energy, which no business is ever going to say that they don't want more of. Now, throughout my virtual assistant career, I've worked mostly with coaches and like course and content creators. So I'm going to share through that lens, but think about a coach who isn't good at organizing their time and they're the person that's in charge of their own calendar management. Maybe before hiring you, they're organizing their own calendar, and because they're not organized, they're allowing people to book time on their calendar whenever they want, or they're getting double booked, or they're not organized to set up the appropriate reminders around their calls that are getting scheduled. And so all of these things I like to refer to as leaks, right? Leaks of time, energy, and money in their business. And so the leak that's created when they're just letting people book on their calendar whenever they want, rather than having some organization and structure around their time, they're going to be hosting calls on days or times of the day way that they're not actually at their best to host those calls. And the leak that that's going to create is a leak of energy. And as they leak energy over and over again, and that compounds, that's only going to create burnout. If they're getting double booked, that means that they're going to have to spend time reaching out to people to reschedule them, which is a leak of their time, right? That's not a good use of their time to be rescheduling people, let alone the fact that the people that need to be rescheduled might not be too happy about that. And that could cause a poor customer service experience. So here you have a leak of time and you have a leak of money. And you actually have a leak of energy too, because them spending time on this isn't going to make them feel particularly good. It's going to be draining. If they're not sending out the appropriate reminders, people could be showing up late to the calls or not at all. And here's a leak of money because they could be missing out on potential revenue opportunities. Or again, they're just wasting their time because they're sitting there waiting for people to show up. And so the same kind of leaks can happen in email management, in not having organized company files and having to search around endlessly for things or recreate files because we can't find them. There's lots of other leaks lack of organization can create throughout the entire business. So you can see just from these examples, how important and valuable the skill of organization can be and why you as a virtual assistant can save them time, money, and energy. So if you're planning to launch your virtual assistant business in 2025, I want you to take a look in the description of this video because I have a services and pricing guide that's basically going to help you dial into what services you want to offer, how to price those services in a way that doesn't undervalue your time and skills, but also so they don't charge too much and price yourself out of getting clients. So you can check that out below. And now we're going to dive into skill number 2. Again, another basic skill, and this is time management. Whether you're showing up as the owner of your virtual assistant business or you're showing up as a team member for your client in a virtual assistant role, time is your most valuable resource. And virtual assistants, you can get full-time employment as a virtual assistant, but a lot of companies are hiring virtual assistants as contractors or freelancers, which means you might not be getting full-time hours with one client, right? And so likely you're going to have multiple clients, which honestly is one of the most fun things that I love about being a virtual assistant because I have so much variety in my day and I get to work with so many people and impact so many people's businesses. That for me is really fulfilling and fun. So if you are handling multiple clients, or even if you are doing VA work as a side hustle and you have a full-time job or some other obligations or some other revenue generating stuff that you're doing, regardless, VA work is likely not the only thing in your life, right? Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom like me, and you've got to juggle work with your kids, or you've got a full-time job already and you're working VA hours part-time to generate more revenue or to create a transition plan to leave your full-time employment, or you're just building a financial safety net for yourself or your family. Regardless, time management is really important for you to both be able to deliver what you promise to your clients, also show up for the other responsibilities that you have in your life, and make sure that you don't burn yourself out in the process. And whether you go through an interview process or you have a discovery call process with potential virtual assistant clients, I can guarantee you a lot of people that are hiring for virtual assistants are going to ask about your time management skills because they're hiring virtual assistants to free up their time. They don't want to hire someone that they need to micromanage to make sure that they're prioritizing their time correctly and getting things done when they're expected. So it's a really good idea to work on your time management skills and also prepare how you're going to respond to questions like that about how you manage your time. And so now I'm going to share a couple of strategies that you can have in your time management toolbox, right? It's important to have a system of tools and processes and habits that you use to manage your time effectively. And for me, one of those tools is the project management software Asana. So if you're not familiar with Asana, like I said, it's a project management software, but there's also systems like ClickUp or Monday, and some people even use apps like Notion or Trello as a project management tool. So I use Asana to track all of my tasks, whether that's within my own business or in my clients' businesses. And essentially, it creates a to-do list for you so that you can track what you're responsible for delivering on and also prioritize those things by date and include details around the task so you have everything there there in one place when you go in to execute a task. And so every day before I log off, I can go through my Asana checklist and figure out what things I actually completed for that day and what things I'm either moving forward to the next day or are already on the next day's to. And so when I come in to start my day, everything's super organized and I can dive right into my work. Now, after I go through that process, the other tool that I use is Google Calendar. And so now that I know what's coming up the next day, I can actually go into my Google Calendar and time block for each client or project based on how long I think it's going to take me and prioritize what tasks I want to do at certain times of the day. For instance, I'm an early riser, so I get up at about 4:30 a.m. and I don't have to drop my son off at school till 8:30. So I typically work from about 5:30 to 7:30 a.m. That for me, that is when my brain is most alert and I'm the most productive. So I know if there's certain tasks that are going to require some brain power, that's the time of day that I want to block to take care of those. You know, if there's things that I'm following up on, or if I'm creating a project plan or doing something that's a little more mindless, for lack of a better word, those are things that I time block in the afternoon when my brain's kind of slowing down and I maybe don't have as much mental acuity as I did earlier in the day. And then another process that I use to manage my time is actually my phone alarms. So that may seem a little excessive, but you know, I have a tendency when I go into work on something to like get tunnel vision, and especially because most of the stuff at this point in my business I really love doing. So I can just like completely lose hours doing it. And sometimes I need to like bring myself back to the real world. And so if I have time sensitive tasks that I know need to be executed like that day, sometimes I'll put reminders in my phone just to make sure that I don't like put my head down and bury it in work and not lift it back up to be able to get these things done that are like that actually need to get done at a certain time. And so these 3 tools are just examples of some of the tools that I have in my time management toolbox. There's actually a lot of productivity software out there. I think one of them is called Sunsama, and a lot of help actually organize all of these different apps that you have that you use in your toolbox into one platform. So if you're not really organized with your time, you might want to check out a productivity software like that because it might really help you get organized with your time. Okay, so skill number 3 at face value could be considered kind of a basic administrative skill. But honestly, it's a skill that's going to serve you both as someone who's trying to grow a business, as well as in your role as a virtual assistant in clients' businesses. And that is customer relations or service. From the perspective of VA work, a lot of VAs, especially if you categorize yourself as like a administrative VA, you're going to be doing customer service work inside of your clients' businesses. But honestly, customer service is not something that a lot of people are good at. I mean, there's a lot of people that are capable of doing customer service, but that doesn't mean that they really thrive, enjoy, or really have a mastery level of customer service. In my opinion, customer service is like the lifeblood of a business. There is so many opportunities running through customer service channels. And when I say customer service channels, I'm referring to things like the customer support inbox, social media DMs, posts in maybe a Facebook group or an online community. There's the opportunity to create immediate sales there when people are asking buying questions. There's also the opportunity to generate goodwill and positive relations so that maybe that becomes a sale later on down the line. There's the opportunity to wow people that are already paying you, and that helps to retain them. And whether or not it helps to retain them or not, it definitely will help generate positive reviews about your business, which can turn into referrals to your business. So this is a skill that's not only valuable, but also can generate revenue for a business. And so there's basic customer service skills, but if you can really master customer service, if it's something you enjoy and you can really grow your skill in that area, I can tell you now at this point in my business where I help people hire VAs, that when a business finds a really stellar customer service person, like they do not want to let them go. So that can help you to retain your clients. Okay, so we've got 4 skills left. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, so now we're getting kind of out of just the basic skills. We're talking about skills that are going to set you apart as a virtual assistant. So skill number 4 is growth mindset. So growth mindset is a term that was coined by Carol Dweck. She wrote a book that I actually read called Mindset, The New Psychology of Success. Growth mindset is so important to virtual assistants specifically. This is another one of those things that clients are going to seek out in the people that they're hiring onto their teams. Carol Dweck's definition of growth mindset was really centered around the fact that people are not limited by their intelligence or their abilities or their talent, right? Having a growth mindset means that you have a belief that you can improve upon these things through effort and dedication. And so in virtual assisting, that could mean, proactively seeking out new skills to learn so that you can include them in your offerings. It could be focusing more intently on a current skill with the goal of mastering that skill. It could be even making a mistake and just having the understanding that that mistake isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's actually an opportunity to learn something and to improve as you go. Especially if you're a VA that's targeting smaller businesses like solopreneurs or startups that have like really lean teams, growth mindset is actually going to be a marketable skill for you, because on these lean teams, clients are often going to want you to have your hands in a lot of different things in the back end of the business and to be able to hop in with something that maybe you're not as familiar with or learn a new skill so that they can apply it to a new opportunity that's come up in the business. And so it's an important skill both for client delivery, but it's just as important to growing your own business, because the more skills that you acquire or the more you master a specific skill, the more money you're going to be able to earn. And a lot of times for less work and effort. And if you really are a growth-minded person at heart, it just makes you feel more fulfilled because you're not staying stagnant, like you're constantly growing and learning and improving. So skill number 5 is another one of these kind of more advanced skills that are going to help set you apart. So I've been working in the online industry for almost 10 years. I've worked with clients at all stages from startup to scaling. I've advanced from starting out as a virtual assistant that focused on administrative services to running my own funnel agency to getting paid hundreds of dollars an hour for consulting. And one of the most important skills that has really helped my clients think of me not just as a doer in their business, but almost like a thought partner is being a good problem solver. Now, I know from experience, this skill really will make the difference of a client wanting to continue to work with you and to trust you to grow your role in their business and also refer people your way. And of course, when they're hiring, they're going to think about the hard skills that their assistant needs. So those are the things that you may have experience with, like email management or calendar management or customer service. And granted, those are all valuable skills. But a lot of the time, money, and energy leaks that clients have, like we talked about in the beginning of the video, from all of the decisions that they need to make the leader in their business. A lot of those decisions are problem-solving decisions. It's a problem arising, being the only person on the team that knows how to or takes the initiative or feels like they have the responsibility to solve it. So if they can find someone to join their team that can relieve some of that burden so that they can focus on the big problems that only they can truly solve, and they have someone that can solve those other problems that come up in the day-to-day, that's going to be a complete game changer for them. And it's going to help make you an indispensable part of their team. And so I'm going to share a little pro tip around problem solving. It's not mine. I read it in a leadership book, and it really originally came from the Toyota Corporation. And really, Toyota used this problem solving process to make sure that they were solving the right problem anytime like a breakdown happened or a mistake came up or they needed to make a decision about something. And so stick with me, because I'm going to give you an example here that is relevant to virtual assistant work to show you how this process works. So let's say you're the customer service person on your client's team and you also send out their email broadcasts or newsletters. So let's say you hop into the inbox and you notice that we sent out an email, the link wasn't working, and we investigated and found out that the wrong link was used. So likely you're going to let your client know that the email went out wrong. You're going to find the right link and you're going to resend out the email. And then you're going to, of course, respond to all of those people that emailed into the inbox, which I've done it. I imagine most VAs have made that mistake at some point. But is the wrong link being used in the email the root problem of this mistake? And so what the 5 why process that Toyota used helps you do is to go deeper and make sure that you're solving the root problem, which is the right problem, before bringing a solution to the table. Now, I want to preface this by saying, of course, you're going to want to create an immediate solution, which would be to send out the right link, right? But I can tell you from experience, clients hate to see the same mistake happening over and over and over again. And if they see that the same mistake is happening over and over again, the chances of you continuing to work with that client might not be that great. And so what if instead of just finding the immediate solution of sending out the email with the right link, you took a little bit of time and went through this 5 why process and asked yourself, okay, so the link wasn't working and we uncovered that the wrong link was put in the email. But now, why was the wrong link put in the email? And when you ask yourself that question, you may say to yourself, well, I was actually rushing. I didn't test the link before I sent the email out. And then you would ask, well, why was I rushing? You might say, well, I was rushing because the copywriter didn't get me the copy for the email until the last minute and I had to rush to upload it. And then you might ask, well, why didn't I get the copy from the copywriter until the last minute? Now, you may not know that answer. You may need to go ask the copywriter, right? But let's say you go ask them and they say, well, I didn't get the messaging points that I needed from the client until the final hour myself. So I had to rush to create the copy just to even get it over to you when I did. And so here's where you're going to ask your final 5th why, which is, why didn't the client get the copywriter the messaging points they needed with enough lead time for the copywriter not to have to rush and miss their deadline? Now, again, here, you may have to go ask the client that. So through this line of questioning, you now don't just have the surface problem by layering these questions. Now you've uncovered that the client's week was completely overbooked and they didn't have the space in their calendar to get the messaging points to the copywriter with enough lead time. Now that you know what the real problem is, you can come up with the actual solution that's going to prevent this from happening again. Because if we only solve the top line problem, all of the other stuff that contributed to that mistake happening is kind of lost until it happens again and you take the initiative to go through this process. So once you know the real problem, you can be the hero of the day and come to your client and say, hey, I acknowledge that I made a mistake and I dug a little deeper to figure out what contributed to this happening. And what I found out was there's like multiple layers to this issue. And now here's some solutions I have that are going to actually prevent this from happening again. I think that going forward, we should block off time in your actual calendar for you to work on deliverables that the team need from you by a certain date. Or I want to make sure when we're in a launch and you're needing to create copy and content that you don't take any non-client calls that week so that you have the space and energy to deliver things on time that the team needs. Can you see from just that one mistake and the solutions that you brought to the table how valuable that's going to be to a client? This is the kind of leadership and skill set that people want on their teams. And that, again, is going to make you indispensable because not everybody operates at this level. And there's a lot of VAs out there that are just like scrambling to get work, right? They just want to get clients. They just want to make money. A lot of people out there, unfortunately, are like desperate just to get their first client or get their next client. And so a client could go into any Facebook group and post a job for a virtual assistant role and get 100 applications. So once you're fortunate enough to land a client, and if they're a good client, this is the way that you show up to ensure that you retain that client. So not only are you providing a really valuable skill and service to them, this is going to build so much trust in you that they're going to want to continue working with you because you're not just doing tasks, you're like relieving leaks for them. And they're probably going to want to grow your role because they're going to trust that you have the capacity and the skill set and the leadership to show up in a way that not everybody else is going to show up in their business. They're going to be more likely to refer other people to you because they know how you show up and they know anybody else that's going to work with you is going to appreciate that same skill set. Okay, that one felt a little intense. You can see I get really passionate about that one, right? I just can't say enough like what a valuable skill that is. And I've had clients tell me over and over and over again, that is one of the things that they value about working with me is my problem solving abilities. And I have clients that like my longest running client is 7 years. I've been working with them for 7 years. And I have 2 clients right now that I worked with when I first started my business. We parted ways because I went in a different direction or they went in a different direction. And we're actually now working together again because I made such a good impression on them. When there was another opportunity to work for me, they jumped at it. Okay, number 6 is technical proficiency. If you're a VA who is working from home or you're working remotely, this is a non-negotiable. And honestly, even if you're working in an office anymore, I mean, everything is so reliant on technology that it's really not an option anymore. Don't let that scare you. Prior to becoming a virtual assistant, I worked as an accountant, I worked in retail, I worked in restaurants, I sold newspaper advertising, and this was when like a lot of stuff was still on paper. We had computers, but things were not nearly as computerized as they are now, going into 2025. So I didn't consider myself tech savvy at all when I started my virtual assistant business. And like, thankfully, there's so many tools now since I started that have been developed that are really simple and streamlined and a lot more intuitive than when I started, when it was websites were on WordPress and there was like hand coding and all of this really advanced technical know-how you need. Now you can create a website for completely for free on a system like system.io, which I actually have an affiliate link in the description below this video. If you're a virtual assistant and you need to create a website, you can create a completely free website on this platform, system.io. It's a really simple page builder. Like, you don't necessarily need design skills. You don't necessarily need advanced technical skills. There's the opportunity to gain technical skills, even if you don't think you're technical, because they've brought the tech like a little closer to people that don't necessarily have advanced technical knowledge or training. If you're an admin VA, you're going to need to know how to use cloud-based calendars. You're going to need to know how to do email marketing and run help desks and work in help desks. If you're a creative VA, you might be using ChatGPT or Canva. And obviously, if you're a tech VA, your role involves a lot of tech, and you're going to be working in systems like CRMs, website builders, payment processors. So the more technical know-how you develop, the more softwares and systems you can navigate in. There will be less barriers to you gaining clients or losing clients because you don't know how to operate in the systems that they're using. Now, again, that doesn't mean that you have to know every system. You could become specialized in a specific system, and that will help you gain clients. Or you can have a broad knowledge of a bunch of systems, and that will help you get clients. But again, here, like most of the clients that I've had over the course of my virtual assistant business, they are not technical. And even if they are technical, they don't have the time or energy to spend on the tech, which is why they want to hire team members who are technical. So this goes back to those leaks, right? If they don't know tech, the time they're going to have to spend on learning tech that you can come in to do is going to shore up that leak of their time. And that is time that they can spend then on generating revenue rather than doing technical stuff in the back end of their business. And if they're not technical, tech's probably a pretty big drain for them, right? It's probably frustrating. So if you can come in and take over some of the technical stuff for them, that's going to relieve that energy drain for them. Okay, we've reached number 7, and this was the one, if you remember way back in the beginning of the video, because this was a little bit of a long one, that I mentioned I wasn't quite sure if this can be categorized as a skill or not. I think so, because it's something that you can practice and get better at. So that makes me think that it should be considered a skill. I would say if you want to build a sustainable virtual assistant business that you love, that lights you up, that allows you to work with clients that you adore, this is the most important skill, and that is setting boundaries. I'm going to be real honest with you and real talk. This was the hardest thing for me to learn, and I would say it's still something that I've definitely gotten better at, but it is something that I work at consistently because it is in my nature as a supportive person to want to go above and beyond to help people, to kind of show up for other people more than I show up for myself. So if you're that kind of person too, this is an absolutely crucial muscle for you to strengthen. And so setting boundaries can be around your time. It can be around your energy. It can be around the literal scope of work that you're doing for someone. And the reason why this is so important is because a lot of people aren't good at setting boundaries. And a lot of people aren't good at respecting boundaries. And it's not because they're intentionally trying to be harmful or override someone else's boundaries. But when I think back to most of the people that I've worked with in my virtual assistant business, they are the creatives. They are the visionaries. They get an idea and they want to run with it, and they want the team to run with it. And they want to do that when they're in the excitement of that idea. And so a lot of times they'll just expect that everyone is as excited at their idea as they are and want to go full force into just getting it done. And that's where some of the overriding of boundaries by the client can happen instead of the letting down and releasing of your boundaries can happen too. Especially if you're just starting out as a VA or you've just landed a new client, right? A lot of times you want to prove yourself, right? Even if you're confident in what you do, you want to show up as your best. You want that client to trust you. That's important to you as a service provider. And so sometimes we think that we have to yes people in order for them to believe that we want to be there, that we want to support them, that we're good at what we do. And so, for example, when you first get hired as a VA on someone's team, if they don't have those strong organization skills that we talked about at the beginning, that is the reason why they're bringing you onto the team for that skill set. When you get onboarded, there's a chance that they're not going to have an onboarding process and that they're not going to know to delegate things to you and when to delegate and what to delegate at what frequency and all of these kind of nuances of hiring and onboarding someone onto your team. And so a lot of times what happens when clients hire a VA is that they fire hose them. They're just so relieved to get support that they're like, here, do this, do this, do this, do this, take this off my plate. I'm going to delegate you this and want you to take this on. And if you're just like, yes, give me all the stuff because I'm super excited that I get to work with you and prove to you that I really care about your business and I really want to help you. Without those boundaries, hey, this is how much I have the actual capacity to learn and to integrate. And this is what we actually talked about in our agreement about me doing versus like all of these other things that are now like piling up. When you don't have those boundaries in place, first of all, you can get burnout really quickly, and that's not going to serve the client or you. And it's also going to create a precedent that you don't have boundaries. And it's actually not the client's responsibility to observe boundaries if you don't have them in place and you don't enforce them. That's your responsibility. So I see this a lot with turnaround times. Like in my service level agreement, I have an item that tells the clients my turnaround times. Now, let's say a client has a really great idea that they're excited about, and they say, hey, can you turn this around by tomorrow? But my turnaround time for new tasks is 2 days. And I say, sure, no problem. The client, either the next time they have an idea, is going to expect that that's okay for them to ask you for a quicker turnaround, or they're going to forget the boundary even exists and they're just going to continue to ask you. And if you're someone who struggles with boundaries, this is so important for you because again, it becomes this slippery slope where the frequency of these requests continue to increase. And again, this leads to burnout. That's why I said this skill is the most important to creating a sustainable virtual assistant business where you don't take on more than you can handle so that you can show up as your best for your clients. So they're going to continue to want to work with you and they're going to want to refer people your way. That's how you grow when you're starting out. Right. So there you have it. Those were the 7 skills every virtual assistant needs to be successful and stand out in 2025. I'd love to hear which one of these skills feels really easy for you or comes really naturally, and which one of these skills is something that now that you heard it is important for you to focus on in the coming year. And don't forget, in the description below this video, I have a pricing and services guide. And especially for those of us that struggle with boundaries, I also have an onboarding meeting template. And that's going to actually help you communicate those boundaries to the client right out of the gate. So you can grab either one of those completely for free in the description below this video. And so the boundary setting, I really do think is the most important thing, but how do you actually do that? Check out this video because in it, I share some pro tips on how to communicate your client right out of the gate. Enjoy, and I'll see you in the next video.